So let's move on to execution now, given that we have a handful of adaptations that we've identified and can use. And let's put these into practice. So what kind of organism are you, and where do you fit? So I want to return to the ecosystem web of food analogy and point out an important feature of the business landscape, which is distribution of players. And so distribution in business usually follow power laws, and they're not normal distribution, so it's not the bell curve. You either win or lose given a certain metric. And this means that there's usually just a few players at the top, quite a few, more in the middle, and then most are at the bottom according to a specific metric. But if you look at it as another way, these may each be successful in their own way and in their own niche. So the mayfly is very successful, even though his lifespan is only 30 days, as opposed to the great white shark. But to reiterate, there's only a few companies at the elite level, but there are many very successful manufacturing businesses, for example, in the middle that make things everyday people use, and they make a lot of money. And there are businesses on every street corner, and down to one-on-one tutoring lifestyle businesses. They're everywhere, and all these things are just providing value in a niche in a really efficient way. So an important takeaway is that you should play your own game. You can be ugly, beautiful, highly specialized, or generalist. It doesn't matter whether you have 100,000 employees. All that matters is that you survive and that you thrive. So pick a niche and make it your own. This slide is, I think, pretty important for people to see who are considering starting a business or in the middle of executing. And it's really good to go back to. And that's the value of ideas versus execution. Execution is pretty much everything, and culture is related to execution, as I mentioned before. Competitive advantages are the leverage to achieve good execution. So, if you have a bad idea, but pretty good execution, you probably won't make a lot of money. But if you have a medium idea but really good execution, you can make a ton of money. A lot of value for your shareholders, for your stakeholders, as well as provide lots of value for your customers and ultimately for you. And so we don't necessarily have to have a brilliant idea, and ideas are really a dime a dozen. What matters is what happens, on the ground floor. And so this is really a caution, and really something to keep in mind whenever you're doing things. Just get in there and do stuff. And I think that's also one of those things that the immigrant mentality really, really helps with. If you have a medium good idea, just run with it and just make it go, see what happens, and then start niching once you're in there. One other caution about execution and positioning is that the real world is different from theory. And this is said in a lot of different ways. Plans never survive combat. And what that means is basically the model is not the reality, or so the map is not the territory. That's also said a lot in battlefield parlance. And what that means is that you just have to go into the environment and see for yourself. So a really good example of this is what China learned during the 4 Pests campaign in the 1950s. So during that period, the Chinese government said, okay, we're going to kill all these pests, mosquitoes, flies, sparrows, and rats. And they learned, unfortunately, that sparrows are critical in the web ecosystem. And if you kill all the sparrows, then locusts become rampant, and it caused a great famine. And it took 2 years before they kind of realized that this was absolutely catastrophic. And the Chinese government improved. They learned from this, and they redirected the sparrows to become bed bugs in 1960. So this was 2 years later. And what I'm saying is that we share today through the lens of experience. For Voxa, our story is still unfolding, but I can say, okay, these things worked and these things didn't work, and we changed in these ways. One other point also is that the victors write the history. So you're gonna get theory from the victors a lot. People ask the people who are successful what they did, but it doesn't always work, when you put it into practice. So like I said, again, you've got to go in and you got to see what things are like on the ground floor and execute, and then make the changes on the fly, and then learn from them. So along the concept of mistakes, expect the unexpected. Along the way, there will be challenges. And there's this concept of hormesis, which was made popular by Nassim Taleb, who's the author of Anti-Fragile and Black Swan. And basically what it is that lemons, when you receive lemons, there's always a chance to make lemonade. And I think this perspective is crucial. Expect the unexpected and leverage it. So in the case of AALA, in my experience, we've had a lot of these. So for example, missing deadlines. I mean, you just can't do everything, and you're going to miss stuff, and it sucks. It happens to us a lot because we're resource strapped. Another example is losing a key employee at a critical time. That's happened to us multiple times. And also this whole issue of running out of cash. And we've had this happen multiple times. Even though each of these events was severely disruptive, we saw each of these failures as opportunities. And actually, it turns out each time we got stronger. So you can't sustain too much stress because that will weaken you. But if you put yourself to the limit a little bit, each time, and then you weather it and you survive, then you'll get stronger. So, I mean, in our case, we were able to examine processes and improve them, such as introducing fixes. And it was a really good time to do that because at the time we had fewer customers or fewer products deployed. It was easier to fix. So Voxa has been through 3 or 4 extremely disruptive situations during our history. And each time after survival, our contract size grew by 5 times or 10 times, add an extra 0 onto the contracts. And these came out because of unexpected learnings. And so this is a really important concept, I think, just to expect the unexpected and make lemonade out of lemons. Okay, so the final thing I'll leave you guys with is something that I think is really, really important. And this is critical to niching. So this is, put very simply, don't try to convince the skeptics. It's too much work. Find the believers. So what that means is, don't be the next Facebook. That niche is taken. Go to places where it's open pasture or open ocean and see the people who will support you and see eye to eye on what you're doing. And things will be a lot easier and the market will pull the best out of you. So I think this is really, really good to sort of revisit from time to time, when you're saying, oh yeah, I'm really trying to push this product into the market and I want, the people to believe. You don't need to do that because there are people out there who do believe. So your job as an entrepreneur really is to find the believers and build up that momentum and then niche and find the adaptations that will give you the leverage to ultimately provide value for the customers, value for your stakeholders, and find great success. So that's it. So I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. And in closing, we're very excited to serve new analytical needs for users both on ISS and in the field. So you can come visit us at projectvoxa.com and look forward to conversations with you and future interactions with the CIE. So thank you very much for listening.
Well, thank you, Chris, for the wonderful presentation. I especially like the organism models of business, and also I guess you should take away that adaptation is one of the unique competitive advantages for startup. Actually, this is kind of in line with I always thinking about continued learning, continued improvements, error correction, which is pretty much build the whole AI technology is from the error correction adaptation for machine learning. And so, yeah, thank you again. If you have any questions for Chris, please enter your question into the chat room.